Happy Hump Day, everybody. Good morning, Alicia. How you doing on this fine Wednesday morning? Welcome, everyone. October 25th, 2023. Michelle, good morning. We're here. We're back. Better and brighter days ahead. Not that there were dark days behind us, but, you always want to keep an optimistic outlook. I'm excited to dive into what the market has for us today. We're getting into the meat and potatoes of earnings season, which is what we've been waiting on this week. That's really been the crux, the fulcrum, the focal point, whatever you want to say, of this week's events. And where a lot of the opportunity lies, especially with the post-earnings plays, that we're so fond of putting on with our post-earnings strategy. Not infallible, right? But does pretty well for us. So whenever you have a season of opportunities that you could take advantage of, you want to make sure you're ready to do that. And that's exactly what we're looking to do here this morning with Microsoft and Google, depending on what the market gives us. So we can't make anything happen, but if things do happen, we can make sure that we are in a position to take advantage. Yes, good morning, Sharon. I love it. Let's go. Yes, Tage, my man, good morning. Miss Collins, yes, good morning. Hello, hello. Hope everybody's doing well. I got up, I ran this morning. I've been on and off my running grind, guys. I cannot lie. I got to be transparent. But I was out this morning. It was 40 degrees. I feel like I don't know, maybe it's like this in other places, but for me, I feel like only in Maryland is it 40 degrees and you ask, your voice assistant what the weather's going to be. Oh, it's 40 degrees right now with a high of 77. Like where do we have 40-degree swings? Like where else do we have 40-degree swings in the weather like day in and day out? It's crazy. Like I feel like it should be like no more than a 15 to 20 degree swing. It's wild that the weather can literally double. And that's just classic DMV weather. You can get all 5 seasons in one day, which just never, ceases to blow me away. I stepped out yesterday in a sweatshirt, right? And it's burning up outside. I'm like cranking up the AC, everything on the way home. I'm like, it was freezing this morning. Now it's burning up. But anyways, I guess that's just how it goes. If you're from the DMV, you know what I'm talking about. And not the Department of Motor Vehicles, talking DC, Maryland, Virginia. Weather is just all over the place. But we're looking for sunshine and rainbows. Hopefully in the market today, we'll see what it ends up giving us. In terms of top news here, let's go ahead and dive into it. But before we get started, make sure that you set your intention, right? Your intention is what brings about action, which brings about habits, which brings about results and closing the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So setting that intention when you start the day is huge, right? Especially during the weekday. On the weekends, you do, you cut loose, you do whatever. It's nice to set intentions for the weekends too, but you want to make sure that throughout that duality of the human experience, right? We're part of you. You're not always doing good stuff. Sometimes you're screwing around, you're eating junk food, you're partying, whatever, right? But the majority of the time, you want to be setting your intention, doing positive things, and being constructive, right? If you can do that, then you can reconcile your life and say, okay, cool. Like I've had a great life and I'm living a great life because it's in balance. And when I say balance, I mean more of my time is devoted toward positivity and productivity than negativity and messing around, right? So we want to set our intention, right? Leave the intentionless days for the weekend. If you have weekend time, right? A lot of times I'm still going to be working most weekends, right? But spend that time during the week, really, really setting that intention. So make sure that there is sentiment behind it when you put that one in the chat, right? Whether you're watching live or via replay. So now that we've done that and we've set our intention, we can get into the actual preparation and then the action. Every single one of those steps, very important. So our top news, beat and a miss. Big tech earnings are beginning to pour in and the market is watching. That's because the largest tech companies in the S&P 500, like the Magnificent Seven, have been responsible for the majority of the index's 11% year-to-date advance, which stalled in September and is still looking for its next catalyst. Meta Platforms, ticker META, and Amazon are also set to report earnings results this week, but the festivities kicked off in after-hours trading on Tuesday with 2 of the biggest players in the industry. In terms of the beat, Microsoft climbed 3.9% to $343 per share after posting fiscal first quarter results that topped expectations, aided by strong growth in its Azure cloud business. Enthusiasm also continues to build for the company's new artificial intelligence products, like the coming AI-powered assistant for Microsoft 365 called Copilot. Opening the books a bit deeper, a heavy investment in AI was seen in capital expenditures, which soared 70% year over year to a record $11.2 billion, while Microsoft's cloud computing services may further benefit from the coming revolution. So Microsoft, someone that is all in on AI, they have been on all in on AI in a while. I hope that Copilot is just a resurgence of that little paperclip that used to be on like Microsoft Word. I love that guy. I don't know what his name was, Clippy, but if they could bring Clippy back, but integrate it with like AI, that could be pretty awesome, right? Or maybe Clippy just ends up being the artificial intelligence destroyer that leads the uprising. Could be horrible. Like maybe Clippy is secretly the Terminator, but I think it would be awesome if they bring him back. I don't even know if that's his name, but yeah, I think that would be great. So with Microsoft, anyways, pushing, right, climbing 3.9%, not a huge move, but one that, we could definitely look to take advantage of this morning, playing the continuation of that. So we'll see. But Microsoft is going to be automatically something that's on the docket, this morning. Don't let anticipation, I guess, also skew your expectations, right? A lot of times people like wait for something, and then that time comes and they screw it up because there's so much anticipation. Today is just another day in the market, right? Every day is just another day in the market. Just make sure you're there, you're level-headed, you're ready to execute, and you take what the market gives you. A lot of times people in their head can build up anticipation and they're like, this day, like it's going to be crazy, and we might, get 25% off a play on Microsoft or 30%. And you don't take that because you're like, we've been waiting for this all week, right? That's something that I don't know what to call it. I need to put a name on it, but that like the inflated expectations that can result from anticipation are very deadly when it comes to markets. Because again, if your expectations are really, really, really crazy high and then it's not met, it could cause you to act in a way that's not beneficial to you or to, your account. So make sure in general, whenever you wait for things, like same thing with Fed days, right? Or same thing with inflation data. People think every time we get inflation data, there's got to be a huge move, right? And there doesn't. There's been plenty of times where the market just ends up flat and people are like, crap, nothing happened, right? But you expect the huge move. So just be prepared for anything and everything, and try and manage expectations. Whether you are super bullish, super bearish, whatever, just try and manage those expectations, right? So that you can stay as level-headed as possible. A huge piece of advice that's super, super underrated because people get caught up in the hustle and bustle so often, and it can cause them to mismanage, go too heavy, etc. Now, in terms of the miss, we got the beat with Microsoft. Next is the miss with Google. Shares of Alphabet, ticker GOOGL, fell 6.1% after hours to $130 per share, despite the company handily topping earnings expectations with its best revenue growth in 5 quarters. So one big area traders focus on, especially in the wake of Microsoft's earnings, was the expansion of Google's cloud division, whose servers power the firm's AI programs. Sales growth there slowed to 22% last quarter, coming in below expectations of 26%, which is troublesome for a company looking to get a bigger slice of the AI pie as its search and advertising businesses mature. So Google, right, on the opposite side of that, we can look to play some continuation using our post-earnings strategy on Google. Very excited, for that this morning to see what Google has available, see if it can provide any opportunity. And if not, we wait for the next best one. But I think in the wake of Microsoft, it's tough because cloud is one of those secularly uptrending sectors. So basically, like secularly uptrending just means over the course of the long term, it's going up, right? It's expanding. It's becoming more popular, more necessary. In the wake of AI, in the explosion of AI, we're going to need even more cloud computing, right? Cloud storage, cloud computing, everything. We're going to need all that. And that's really been the driver in companies like Microsoft and Azure, and it's provided them, with a lot of positive earnings, just like it did yesterday. And I think that, Google's cloud division slowed. So that's what a lot of people were focusing on. So it sucks whenever you have to report and you have to report bad news, but especially when you have to report news and you reported along one of your peers, right? It's like when you all got report cards and you came home and your brother or sister's report card was better than yours, like that's a crappy feeling. I wouldn't know. I was a nerdy kid, right? And my siblings are probably somewhere punching the air like, yeah, shut up, you nerd. But I loved coming home and having the report card day because my report card was generally pretty nice. Sharon's probably laughing because my mom said you were kind of similar to me, when you guys were younger. But yeah, I love report card season. But it's like that exact thing where it's like if you bring home a C, your sibling brings home an A. It's like, come on, man. Same thing with Google. I doubt Google would have gone down as much if it had not reported during the same time as Microsoft, which is just unfortunate. Part of the way that life goes. But let's see here. In terms of seeking alpha comments, and for anybody who's like, oh man, Adam, you're dumping on your siblings. Like my brother played Division I football, and I had leg problems my whole life. So everybody's just got their wins and their losses, right? I don't claim to be proficient in all areas. There's just certain areas where you might have the leg up. So in terms of seeking alpha commentary, robust performances in the search and YouTube businesses are likely being overshadowed by a sharp deceleration in Google Cloud and management's guidance for CapEx spending, wrote investing group leader Ahan Bashi, who added that in light of the post Q3 sell-off, Google stock now looks fairly valued. There's someone that always says that, right, after every earnings, and there's a sell-off, and people are like, oh, this is the prime value for this stock. You don't determine that, man. The market determines that. Let's see here. Quote, assuming a base case of, okay, yeah, this is just a whole lot of math. Honestly, no need to even talk about that. Look at the chart, evaluate the chart, make decisions based on the technicals, and then push from there. In terms of legislation, moving on to our next headline, right to repair. Apple has backed the Biden administration's push for a U.S. right to repair bill as the iPhone giant shifts its stance after years of complaints over the high cost of fixing its devices. It is also committed to make the components, tools, and documentation needed for fixing its hardware available to independent repair shops and consumers nationwide. Apple is already required to do so in California, which passed its Right to Repair Act earlier this month. But a national right to repair law in which Apple sees real value will likely push other companies to follow suit. The bill is expected to help American consumers save $49.6 billion annually. And I'm all for it because only in America do we have these things set up to absolutely milk money out of people, right? Overseas, it's definitely a cultural thing, but overseas, they just do not care to spend all the money on things that we spend here, right? Which is why, again, things like, Apple's VR headset aren't even debuting over there because they're not going to pay $1,000 for it. They're only going to pay $300 for it, which is what the price is going to settle at over the course of the next 1.5 to 2 years, right? So this is just part of what I hope is like a, large swathing change when it comes to business systems and customs for these big tech companies, where instead of just trying to milk every little dollar out of us that they can, right? They can they can just keep it pushing. Right. So let me check that back in. Know that it's NC weather. We have 4 seasons a day. Yeah, look, Detree said Mississippi. Yeah, look, weather all over the place. Yeah. If you guys are having any issues with choppiness or sound, something like that, you can try leaving and coming back in. It also just might be just be tech issues following through. But if there is any type of issues while I'm speaking and this cuts out anything like that, just go over and check out the newsletter yourself. And then you can focus on the plays that we're going to make right within the Facebook group. So don't ever sweat this too much. This is just kind of getting us in, the mood and offering us, some insight, getting us into that market frame of mind before the opening bell. But don't let it hold you back, right? Or kind of hinder your morning. If you're like, oh man, for me, might be where you're at. You're like, oh, this isn't loading for me. You're fine. You'll definitely survive. In terms of media news here, addictive algorithms, Meta Platforms, ticker META, has been sued by California and more than 24 U.S. states, which allege that Instagram and Facebook exploit young people for profit and feed them addictive content. Quote, in seeking to maximize financial gains, Meta has repeatedly misled the public about the substantial dangers of its social media platforms, the lawsuit claimed. New York Attorney General Letitia James blamed Meta and other social media firms for children and teenagers suffering from record levels of poor mental health. Meta, Snap, TikTok, and Google are all facing hundreds of similar lawsuits. Note that Meta will post its Q3 results after the bell today. So this is something Meta's had to deal with for a while. There are studies that irrefutably show that, Meta and its applications like Instagram and Facebook and all that negatively affect, the development of teenagers, specifically girls, right? We have increased rates of, suicide, younger suicide, record levels of poor mental health. And a lot of that is being again, directly linked, not linked through hearsay or some shoddy, study. This is real results that are showing the direct effect. which is unfortunate and it sucks. Is this something that I think like Facebook, this matters to them? I don't think so for right now, to be honest. Unfortunately, I think social media will have to have a much larger negative effect for there to be any type of like restrictions set on it or something really having to change. But that's just my 2 cents. We'll see kind of how things develop, but I don't think that it impacts Meta's earnings at all. Now, in terms of automotive news here, drivers needed. General Motors Cruise is pausing its self-driving operations in San Francisco after California ordered it to remove such cars from state roads, citing safety concerns. The State Department of Motor Vehicles, which previously directed Cruise to cut its robotaxi fleet by 50%, also suspended the firm's driverless testing permits. The development follows a series of accidents involving Cruise cars, which had already prompted an investigation by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The heightened scrutiny will likely add pressure on GM, which is also facing roadblocks in its electric vehicle plans due to the UAW strike that was just expanded to its Texas assembly plant. So that offered a good piece of inside information in that the auto workers strike is still going on. It's still going strong. And in fact, it's getting stronger as in they're adding more plants and more workers to the strike. So things not really looking good from a fundamental standpoint for GM right now. They've focused a lot of energy, a lot of money, a lot of time in their Cruise department, right, which is their self-driving operation. And, this is just something that's a big setback, right? A big setback because whoever can master self-driving first has a huge leg up over other competitors. And it's something that's going to be standard in cars really probably within the next 10 years. So it's kind of like electrification. Every car needs to be electric. Every car has to be self-driving. Those are like the benchmarks that these companies have to reach separate from each other. So everybody's taking their own route to get there. And looks like GM had a few speed bumps along the way. Now, in terms of today's markets, mixed bag. In Asia, we're green, with Japan up 0.7%, Hong Kong up 0.6%, China up 0.6%, India down 0.8%. In Europe, the FTSE in London up 0.1%, Paris down 0.2%, Frankfurt down 0.1%. The Dow was flat, S&P down 0.4%, NASDAQ down 0.6%, crude down 0.3%, gold down 0.2%, Bitcoin down 0.7% to 34,182. In terms of today's economic calendar, we got a few things at 10 a.m., new home sales, State Street Investor Confidence Index. None of that seems super, super important. Powell speaks, but it's at 4:35 p.m. The market's closed, of no consequence to us. In terms of what else is happening, let's finish up with our rapid fire stock news rundown. Earnings misses are being punished more than beats are being rewarded. So that's an observation here so far during earnings season, is that people aren't really caring about any positive news. They're really only focusing on the negative news here. SunPower, ticker SPWR, plunges on plans to restate certain financial results. So they might have been fudging the numbers a bit. Visa, ticker V, earnings beat consensus on resilient spending and volumes. China unveils fresh stimulus, although economic growth fears linger. Coca-Cola, ticker KO, rallies as strong pricing drives Q3 organic sales beat. Best day in 15 years. Verizon, ticker VZ, boosts guidance for free cash flow. General Electric, ticker GE, soars after strong results, higher guidance. Snap fluctuates after jumping post-market on earnings beat. Snap, something that I took some flyers on. You guys probably took some flyers on too at the end of the day yesterday. Got to see how we open there. If we open up, puts are toast. Snap normally gaps down. So I always miss it. And this time, right, I was like, oh, let's see if we get the same thing. And it looks like at least last time I checked overnight, it was flat. If it's flat, those flyer puts are absolutely cooked. If it's down, they might have some value. But as always, right, earnings plays. If you wouldn't flush it down the toilet, don't play it on earnings. These are lottery tickets. If you want to focus on real plays with substantial merit, then you focus on the post-earnings plays, right, which we typically focus 90% of our energy on. But just like I talked about earlier, it's fine to have some fun every once in a while, right? Throw some flyers out, see what happens. So we'll see what happens with Snap. But normally they gap down big. Looks like they tried to pop and then they had some wild after hours action. But we'll see what happens today. In terms of Teladoc, ticker TDOC, Teladoc Health slides on soft outlook, plans operational review. And then ARM, ticker ARM, and NVIDIA among possible winners in new chip development. Yeah, NVIDIA, I was asked a question recently about them. like involving the gap that they have from their last earnings and, the possibility of that gap being filled to the downside. But there are whispers of NVIDIA, not whispers, right? There are full-fledged and reviewed reports of them coming out with a new chip. It's supposed to be really impactful, be really important, and be a game changer. So I don't know if they'll unveil that during earnings or when, but it makes it tough to short NVIDIA during anything other than a day trade, right? Because one piece of news and we could be gapping up again. But that's it for today, right? We can wrap it up, put a bow on it, take us out for our session this morning. I'm excited for what the market has to offer. We're going to go ahead and dive into that now, right? But as always, if you enjoy this content, you appreciate this session, just show love to the accounts, right? Over on Instagram, show love to the content being dropped there. Very, very important stuff being dropped over on Instagram, especially now. A lot of things that go into trading success have nothing to do with actually executing behind the candles, right? And executing on the platform. 90% of it is mental, like adhering to a system, executing, not being fearful, following your rules. Like a lot of this is a mental game. In trading, there's no other environment like it, like the market. So your mental has to be on point, right, in order for you to flourish. Otherwise, it's tough for you to get out of your own way. So let's make sure we're not impeding ourselves or impeding each other. Let's cheer each other on. Be successful and be positive here today. You either win or you learn. So let's make sure that, we do one of those things and then use that to build on future successes. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Tomorrow morning, we're right back at it with our Friday Eve portion of the pre-market prep sessions. Have a good one. Peace.